Welcome back, San Marcos, and this is a new episode of Bobcat Radio. I'm your host, Gage Sutton, here with my co-hosts, Amanda Geyer and DeShaun Hartley. Guys, how are y'all doing today?
I'm great. Just count down the days till we're back in San Marcos, but doing great.
I'm great. It's very early for me. I don't know why people are gonna laugh and probably say this is not early, but it's pretty early for me, considering there's nothing to do. But I'm
Uh,
doing good. Doing good.
Dude, I'm in the same boat, man. This 11 o'clock start time is a little difficult for some of us, and I'm in the same boat, bro, so no
Oh,
judgment here.
crazy. I'm up at 4 every day.
Yeah, nah, couldn't be me.
I don't know how you do that,
I've
but
been up for the past 5 hours already.
well, anyways, guys, there's a lot to talk about in terms of San Marcos High School sports, Texas State sports, and the new national sports or the national sports came back, and there are a lot of storylines to talk about there, especially the NBA. I know we're all NBA fans here, so we'll get to that stuff later. But in this first segment, I want to talk about San Marcos High School, and they've been doing some things over the offseason that are pretty big, starting with football. They got a new coach, and I know this has been a topic of discussion. We've done interviews with him and talked to him before. Coach John Walsh. And, I mean, talk about a big signing for San Marcos High School. He's a two-time state champion in the state of Texas, and now he's coming into an organization that had a huge jump with Coach Soto. So, Amanda, what do you think of this signing for San Marcos?
I'm excited for him. I've talked to him before just on Zoom calls and stuff, and he was just ready to get in there and get started. He moved his family to San Marcos right away. He's just super excited. He just talked about how he just making his team tough. He's coming off of some state championships with Denton Geyer, so that's obviously a big jump is bringing his techniques that he used to get those championships into San Marcos. So I'm pretty excited to see what he does this season.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what this team can do in terms of the Coach Walsh signing. I think it was a great signing for San Marcos because of losing Coach Soto to my alma mater in Johnson High School. But I think this is a great signing, and not only is it great, but he got to bring in a couple of people from his staff that he's familiar with, and like Coach Nash. And then obviously there's people that are still on here on the staff, like Coach Strunk, who he gets to work with this season. And it's going to be interesting to see what he can do with this group of talented kids. He has some talent on both sides of the ball. So I think it's a really good signing, and it's going to be interesting to see what they can do with this talent of kids on both sides of the ball.
Absolutely. And as a few people who have kept up with San Marcos High School as of late and the past few years, during the spring, we found out that they were going to be switching districts too. So that'll provide a new challenge against different teams. I think they're going to be playing Austin Westlake and Travis, some tough schools like that. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do against those Texas powerhouses. But let's get into it a little broader. Amanda, do you have predictions for this team?
I think definitely with this new district, I think they will have a better record than they did the past couple seasons. The last district they were in, they were playing some pretty tough teams. But this new district, I feel like, yes, there will be some competition and there will be some losses. I'm thinking mainly just Westlake and Lake Travis. Those are obviously some of the harder teams that they're going to be playing just because Westlake has state championships, like Travis does as well. It's just those teams are obvious, like you said, powerhouses, but I think they will also have a lot of wins as well. I think more than last year. I'm thinking wins against Hayes and against Del Valle and Bowie possibly. And then they are playing my alma mater as well this year, Cedar Ridge. And Cedar Ridge has been a powerhouse for the past couple of years. They didn't make it very far the past 2 years, but my senior year, they made it to the semifinals. So they have Sam Robinson. He's been there for a couple years now. So I think that could kind of be, it could go either way for that game, just because they're losing a lot of seniors this year at Cedar Ridge. So I think they could possibly come out with a win for that game for the last game of the year. So
It's definitely going to be a challenge. I'm not going to say Switching districts made it any easier. Obviously, last year you had Judson, Steele, Clemens, teams like that who were pretty good. But in this district, you got Westlake and Lake Travis, like Amanda said, and Westlake won state last year, and they beat Geyer 24-0. So it's going to be cool to kind of see Coach try to come back and redeem himself against some of these teams. Just looking at some of the players who are coming back for Westlake, they have Zane Myers, who's an 1,000-yard rusher, 8.7 yards per carry, which is absurd, and 14 touchdowns last season. And he's committed to Yale. Also had offers from Lamar and Air Force, so he returns. And then they do like to do a lot of running back by committee. And they also have, I don't know how to say his last name, but his name is Gray Nakfor. And he had 83 carries for 6.6 yards per carry and 9 touchdowns last season. So Westlake still returns a lot of their running backs. Looking at it, I think they're losing their starting quarterback. So that's going to be tough. And then Lake Travis also, they're returning a stud running back also in Weston Steffens, who had 1,000 yards again. And he had six 100-yard rushing games and 6 multi-touchdown rushing games. So it's gonna be tough for this team to come out here. In terms of predictions, if they can win some of these middle of the pack games, like Amanda was talking about, the Del Valleys and things of that sort, they could find themselves right there fighting for a playoff spot. And it's going to depend on what they can do against some of those teams during the season. If they can find a rhythm halfway through the season, maybe beat some of these teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember going back to my glory days when I played high school football. My senior year, we had to play against Austin Lake Travis, and that was the team that Garrett Wilson, Ohio State wide receiver, is on, and they were just so good. So the San Marcos High School, man, they got a challenge up ahead, but I think they're up for the challenge with a new coach and a very talented team. But onto the other San Marcos High School team that we cover at the moment is the basketball team. And there have been some pretty big things coming up for 2 of the young guys on that team. Let's start with Malik Presley. DeShaun, what have you been hearing about Malik?
So Malik, throughout the AAU season, and AAU is usually where you get your offers from. That I definitely would know that from experience. But you get your offers playing AAU against tough competition. In school ball, usually there's about maybe 1 or 2 good players on a team, and then you might find 3 on a state championship team. But in AAU, usually there's 5 dogs out there who can just play, and Malik is going out there playing against them at a very, very young age. Obviously, last year in the district that they were in, he played against some tough competition at a young age, and you saw some of those mistakes that because he was a freshman. But now he's getting more mature. You can see he's playing against tougher competition. The mixtapes that I've seen that they've put out of him, he's making moves that I didn't see him make last year in any of those district games. I don't know if it was just like school ball or whatever, but some of the moves he's been making have been looking outstanding, and that's why he has 4 offers now from Oklahoma and IUPUI, and you just see his offers start to grow and grow and grow. And I think he's only going to continue to get better over time. And we have to realize these kids are only sophomores. So that just blows my mind. And he's only going to get more offers. He'll probably have about 30 plus by the time he gets to his senior year, which is kind of crazy, and already high Division I offers. So he's been doing good this summer.
Absolutely. And like you said, they're only sophomores. It's crazy to think that him and his running mate, who we'll get to with Amanda, that they're just 15 years old. Like, these kids are playing out of their minds in AAU, and I can't wait to see what they can do with Coach Pinchback in year 2. So, Amanda, we talked about not Caden. Well, I kind of spoiled the surprise, but we talked about Malik, but Caden Gums has also been playing really well, and he hasn't gotten as many offers as Malik yet, but I have a feeling they're going to be coming because me and Jude have seen him play this summer, and he has just been amazing. But Amanda, let's hear about it.
So just with Caden, I feel like also, he's young as well. We saw last season he was also kind of making some of those mistakes that Malik might have been making as well. They just kind of, like DeShaun said, they're very young. Like, it's crazy to think how young they are and how well they are playing now. I do think that Caden will, after like next season, in the high school season, he'll probably get more offers rolling in and everything. And maybe even after next summer when he's playing AAU again, just kind of, I feel like he'll be sought out for after this season and everything. So I think he'll definitely like keep up with Malik and everything, and they'll definitely be getting lots of offers throughout this school year. So I'm excited to see what happens with that, and it's definitely excited for this season for basketball with Caden. So
Yeah, absolutely. Caden and Malik have a really good chemistry on the court together too, and it's cool to see them play on the same AAU team. And it's going to be very fun to see them play in San Marcos. Well, I guess we could ask about expectations for the basketball season. I know it's a little early, but we've talked with Coach Pinchback a lot, and they've been going through the coronavirus just like every other team has. So just some quick predictions from y'all. What do y'all think is going to come from this season with a new district too?
Well, it's going to be interesting because I know last year Anderson came in second in the district and they moved districts. I think it's up in the air, honestly. I think anybody could really come in and take this district. Obviously, Westlake, again, 33-2 last season, and they were 16-0 in district. And they have a Kansas commit in KJ Adams, who won MVP of the district, who's coming back. So to win it as a junior, I'm sure he only got better and wants to come back and win it again. But in terms of San Marcos, they have the talent to come in this district and do something special. Maybe not win the district, maybe not even come in second, but they definitely should be able to compete. And the way that these two players, not only them, but the way that they've been able to play this summer, the rest of the team will follow their lead. And I think that that's something that this team is going to have to look forward to. Obviously, you're going to have Bowie. You're going to have other teams in there. Lake Travis wasn't very good last season. I'm pretty sure they were 5-11 in district. But you're still going to have to face some of those what I like to call middle of the pack teams, and you're going to have to win those games or at least try to get a split, so that way you can come in the top four and make the playoffs. And the one thing that I need San Marcos to work on, because last year I wrote a lot of articles on them. Their perimeter defense is one thing that's going to have to get better if they want to compete at a high level for the next 3 years, as well as their rebounding. And I think that'll only get better as the year progresses. But I think Coach Pinchback will have them ready to play when the time comes.
yeah, I definitely agree. And like, also their team is so young. They have a lot of young kids on the basketball team. So I think also, they're coming into their second year. There's a lot of freshmen that were starting last year. And they know how Pinchback coaches, and Pinchback knows how they play. Like, they've kind of just gotten to know each other even more. I think that'll definitely help a lot, just having them coming back for their second year. I think just also with Malik and Caden, they're just on fire, and they're just going to keep getting better, like we said. And Pinchback, I've just seen him tweeting. He's so hyped up for the season, and we still have a whole semester to go, but he is just like on fire, and you can just tell off of Twitter and just everything that's been going on Twitter, and just seeing their basketball team just getting better every day. So I'm excited for this season.
Yeah, I think everyone.
I was just gonna say every team besides Westlake had 5 losses in district play. So it's to see all those teams match up against each other during the district is going to be really, really cool. You're going to be able to see who is going to be fighting for that second place, third place spot, especially with Anderson leaving the district. So it's going to be cool to see what happens with this young team.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a toss-up. So it'll be interesting to see, like you said. But we're running out of time here for our first segment, but we will be back after this short commercial break. You're listening to Bobcat Radio on KTSW 89.9. And thanks. And be sure to tune in, and make sure to stay tuned in, because Drew King is coming on the show of the San Marcos Daily Record, and we will be talking to him about San Marcos, Texas State football and volleyball, who just announced their schedule changes. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back, guys, and you're listening to Bobcat Radio on KTSW 89.9. I'm your host, Gage Sutton, and I'm here with Amanda Geyer, DeShaun Hartley, and our special guest for today, Drew King of the San Marcos Daily Record. Drew, how you doing, man?
What's up, y'all? I'm good. How are y'all?
It's early. That's what we were talking about. It's just early for me. I don't know why.
I'm good.
Everybody's
Great.
on quarantine time.
Yeah.
Quarantine time.
Well, Drew, before we get things kicked off, you've been pretty busy on Twitter with all the news, and how's everything been since coronavirus kicked in?
Honestly, it's been a little bit slower, just because usually we would be doing a lot more in the terms of previews for the football season and the volleyball season coming up. Right now everything's been delayed, so it's a little bit slower, but we've done a pretty good job of finding other stories that are out there, and especially giving updates with the pandemic. So it's still busy, it's just a little bit slower.
Yeah, I feel like that's been the case for us too. It's kind of hard to get the exact right content, but as far as I could see, you guys have been doing a great job.
Appreciate it.
So I guess let's get into the brunt of it. Big news this week from Texas State, and they said that the football season will go on and the volleyball season will go on. The schedules were released this week, and Texas State football even pushed their season up a week. So their home opener with SMU. So it'll be pretty interesting. Drew, what are you hearing about that?
So as far as the football game getting moved up, first of all, they had to request special permission. Both teams did, from their respective conference. So the Sun Belt and the American Athletic Conference both gave the okay for that to happen. Also, Denise Trouth, the Texas State president, had to make sure it was okay. So she also got it approved. And it's really, I think, just to see if they can pull it off in the first place, and figure out, is this something that's viable for a full season? And then they have that bye week now in between the SMU and the UTSA games, and that'll let them, I guess, have more plans for their next game, whether or not that's going to be happening or not.
Okay,
Yeah.
I guess that takes us to DeShaun's question. I know you had Drew.
That was my question right off the bat. Like, do you even think that this season is going to be able to last all the way through? I know Nick,
Sorry, y'all.
no, you're kidding. I know Nick has been doing a good job covering the cases in San Marcos, but that's like not even with any of the students really there. That's like with none of us there. So with all of us there and some of us having in-person classes and some of us not, do you think that the city is going to be able to be capable of keeping the corona cases down and then not transferring it to the football team and canceling the season?
They're gonna definitely try their best. They've got a laundry list of safety guidelines and protocols that they're going to put in place. I know on the media side of things for the football games, we're going to have to get our temperatures checked before we enter the building just for practice. We have to wear masks. We have to stay in the stands to watch practice. We all have to stay socially distanced. So it's going to be about as safe as we can be while we're doing our jobs. As far as attending the games, there's ways that you can make it safer. I know that they're not going to have the full stadium packed, obviously. They're going to make it they're only going to allow a fraction of the stadium to be filled, and that'll allow everybody to kind of stay spaced out. I'm pretty sure they're going to require masks. They made the switch to digital ticketing so that there's less hand-to-hand contact. So they're going to make it as safe as they can be. I don't know whether or not that's going to mean that it's going to be it's not going to be an NBA bubble, right? It's not going to be where everybody who comes in isn't going to have the virus, I don't think. But it's going to be kind of up to you whether or not the risk outweighs the reward of watching football.
Do you think that eventually, so like right now they're saying yeah to fans, like, they're gonna do all those protocols. Do you think eventually they'll just like cut the fans and it'll just be like just them playing and just all the people, the media being there?
That's a good question. I think it's tough because they really need that gate money, obviously. But there might be a point where it gets really bad to be attending some of these games, and you're right, they might have to shut it down altogether. I don't know when that point would be, but I think it has to be in the back of everybody's minds that, like, at some point it might not be safe to attend games, for sure.
Yeah, and we're hearing, we saw that the volleyball schedule and they're still looking to play too. So what can you say about Texas State volleyball?
So volleyball, their schedule got shortened a lot, right? They played 34 games last season, 34 regular season games. This year, they're only playing 19 matches. And I think one of the interesting things was that the Sun Belt shortened their conference slate of games. So Texas State is only going to see the Sun Belt West teams, which is the 2 Louisiana schools, the 2 Arkansas schools, and UTA. And they're going to play a home and home series with each of those teams, and that's it. That's all they have. It's just 10 games, and they don't see any of the East teams in the Sun Belt. And Sean Hewitt made a good point where he said, they're not going to see any of those teams until playoffs, right? The conference tournament. And at that point, anything can happen. So we could see some wild upsets in the Sun Belt volleyball tournament this year. I think it's going to be a lot of volatility. But as far as the non-conference games, I think they did a really good job of making it still really competitive, but also keeping it in state to where they don't have to fly out to other schools. It's pretty much all the big schools in Texas, right? It's Texas A&M, Baylor, SMU, Rice, some really big powerhouses in volleyball, but still in a close distance. So I think they did a good job with their schedule.
Obviously, Coach Hewitt is coming into his first season. I'm not sure how the off season is looking for them. Have they been working together throughout the off season? Are they getting ready to start playing these games already, or have they not really been able to be with each other throughout all this?
So I talked to Emily DeWalt last week for a story I'm working on. And one of the things she told me was, first of all, they're still in voluntary workouts. They haven't started their training camp yet, but they have been doing these voluntary workouts. And she said one of the weirder things is they're having to pretty much go full speed with the mask on, which is something that nobody's really used to yet. But she said it was really good for everybody to get back in the gym because a lot of these girls don't have any place they can really work out where they're from, right? They don't have any equipment, any weights or anything. So you might not see them in the best of shape to start the season, but at the same time, everybody's going to be in the same boat, right? Everybody's going to have a late start to training camp. So it's going to be maybe a slow start for everybody in volleyball, but I think being at voluntary workouts for as long as they have, they'll be in a good place.
Do you know when they're going to make them kind of like not mandatory workouts, but like
training camp? They haven't announced a specific date yet, and especially with the start of the season kind of pushed, it might be later than usual.
Okay, so Drew, we just got done talking about volleyball, but let's go back to I guess football and volleyball are both in a similar situation. New coach, obviously. Sean Hewitt is a first-year head coach, and Coach Spavital is in his second season, but 2 relatively new faces to the Texas State athletics programs. What are we expecting from these 2 teams? Or let's start with football. What are you expecting from this team in this odd season?
Yeah, this is gonna be, like you said, it's an odd season. I think they did a relatively good job recruiting-wise because they lost so many seniors this past off-season, and you can't replace them all with freshmen and expect to be just as good. So they did a good job of finding a bunch of junior college transfers, and I think they can at least uphold their 3-9 season from last year. If the offense takes any kind of a step forward, I think you could see an improvement in the win margin because the defense, I think, is going to be relatively still strong. So I'm expecting a lot of improvement year 2 from Jake Spavital. For the volleyball team, I think it's business as usual. They have a lot of the same players. They only lost 4 seniors, and they still have the setter of the year in Emily DeWalt, and she's gonna do a great job of setting all of their outside hitters and middle blockers at the front line up. So I think for them, they're still gonna be a contender to win the Sun Belt Championship and possibly make an NCAA title berth or tournament berth.
So for volleyball, we know that they already won back-to-back conference titles, and we already know what their expectations are. For football, what would be I'm not going to say like what would be their expectations, but what would kind of be like a good season for them to have in Spavital's second season with all of these transfers? Like, where do you see them falling? And like, how good of a season do you think that they're trying to look to have?
I think the first step towards building a really good program in the Sun Belt right now would be to make a bowl game, right? But that's if everything goes perfectly and they just surprise a lot of people. I think a Sun Belt is obviously what you're shooting for right now. But realistically, I think Texas State fans should just be happy with seeing any kind of improvement in terms of wins, right? Even if you don't get to the 6 or the 7 wins that you need to make a bowl game, if you make it to 4 wins or 5 wins, that's a pretty big accomplishment, especially for a new head coach who just took over the program.
Do you think that like moving, so their game got moved up? Do you think having that bye week, because they're playing UTSA the next week, that's obviously the I-35 rival game. Do you think that will help them with preparing for that game and possibly coming out with a win against that game? Because that's the biggest game really of the year ever. So
I think it'll help having that bye week between games. And the UTSA game, the last time they played was a really, really close game. That was Tyler Vitt's kind of coming out party in that game. So I think they definitely have a chance to win that UTSA game, and I think the bye week will help for sure.
Yeah, and I need Texas State to win that game because all of my friends go to UTSA, so I need some bragging rights. And
hey, it's at home too, so.
I feel that. I live in San Antonio, so I want Texas State to win.
Me too. Well, speaking of San Antonio, we're going to shift the gears to the NBA.
Oh, thank God.
My San Antonio Spurs, who have won
Go Sixers.
3. Okay, they lost against the Sixers, but we're talking about the NBA as a whole.
Hold on, wait, did y'all even watch the Sixers game?
I did.
We did.
I watched the fourth quarter.
The Spurs were so close to winning.
Yeah, they left Shake.
That's all that matters.
But anyways, guys, for the NBA, we had some pretty big upsets this week, including the Bucks losing to a glorified G team in the Nets. And the Clippers got upset by Devin Booker and the Suns, who had a game winner. It was awesome, laid on the floor, the whole meme and everything. It's going awesome. Have y'all seen any other upsets that have been pretty crazy to y'all?
The Rockets have been kind of impressive in these first couple games. They beat the Mavs in their opener in the bubble, and then they went and beat the Bucks. They lost to Portland last night. But the Rockets have kind of impressed me how in sync they are, despite the long break from when the regular season got shut down.
Yeah, the Rockets do look like they're in sync. Obviously, TJ Warren, I call him the MVP bubble right now. This man is on a mission. I don't know what he took, what he's, I'm not even gonna say what he's took. I don't even want to accuse him of nothing, but I don't know what he did. But ever since he got into the bubble, like I don't know, Jimmy Butler must have said something to them while they were playing ping pong or something, and he probably just made them mad. And so TJ Warren is just going off on everybody. And so anyone that plays against the Pacers right now, I kind of feel scared for. But the Suns do play the Pacers, I think either today or tomorrow. And the Suns are 3-0. So I do think that that's going to be actually be a matchup to look forward to. And who would have ever thought I would say Suns versus Pacers is a matchup to look forward to. But you never know, especially with the way Devin Booker is playing and the way that TJ Warren obviously is playing right now. He's playing out of his mind.
They need to drug test TJ Warren. But
after Bol got drug tested, they need to drug test TJ Warren.
Man, I know you're a Sixers fan, but you got to say something about the Spurs, right? They were very close to upsetting your team.
Okay, it was okay. I'm a Sixers fan. I just have to, stay true to my teams. But they definitely were very close. I will give you that. I was very nervous at the end, not gonna lie. They had a 2-point lead. Yeah, 2 points, right? It was 2 points. It was like the last 5 or 6 seconds, and then they didn't win. So, but it was very nerve-wracking. But we came out with the win, so that's all that matters. But they were close. It was a good game though. Like it was neck and neck like the whole entire time. So it definitely was a good game to watch just because it was so close the whole time. It just definitely kept me on the edge of my seat. So it was a good game overall.
Absolutely. And, the Spurs are actually one of the teams that I wanted to talk about because the race for the 8th seed is going to be pretty fun in the Western Conference. We got a lot of teams who have come out really strong, including the Spurs. But let's get some predictions. Drew, what do you think? Who do you think is going to run away with the 8th seed in the West?
Ooh, okay. I got the standings right here. So right now, the Spurs are only a half game behind Portland.
Oh, wow. So
for the 9th seed.
9th seed, okay.
So, I had Jude on my podcast, I went on Jude's podcast a little while ago, and we talked about the Spurs before all of this started. And I said on there, the Spurs had to rack up a bunch of wins together to get this 9th seed, and so far they've been doing that. And I really like kind of the lineups that Pop is trying out. He's playing DeMar DeRozan heavy minutes at the power forward spot, which is not something I would have expected this season, but it's been working so far because it opens up a spot for one of the younger guards to play. So Lonnie Walker's been starting, and that kind of spreads the floor a little bit more. So I think the Spurs can keep this up. I don't love the rest of their schedule, but I kind of like them to take the number 9 seed right now. I don't see anybody else kind of being able to keep up with them right now.
Yeah, Portland definitely is one of those teams that you have to look out for. And I will say, even though I am a admin against the Spurs, I am one of the people that you rarely hear me say anything about the Spurs, not because it's the Spurs, but because of the fans. I just can't stand y'all. I do think the Spurs have surprised a lot of people. Like, a lot of people didn't think that the Spurs had a chance, especially with LA going out. But I think that luck is in your favor right now because Jaren Jackson Jr. Just went out from Memphis, and they're in the 8th spot, so they could drop as far down as 10, 11. And the way the Pelicans are playing, I don't see them doing anything in the bubble. So I think Portland and the Spurs might be battling it out for 8 and 9, and then obviously you have to have a play-in between the 8 and 9 because it's going to come down between 4 games. Like it's going to be a 4-game race, or it has to be within 4 of the 8 and 9 for them to do a play-in. So I do think if Portland and the Spurs match up, that's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens. But the thing is, even if the Spurs do get the AC, DeMar DeRozan's kryptonite is LeBron James. So I'm not really worried about it at all. I expect a sweep in the first round. So if the Spurs make the playoffs, cool. That's even better for me. I just get to laugh that y'all got swept. That's even better for me.
It'll be a gentleman's sweep. It'll be 4-1.
We get to laugh because our playoff streak gets to keep going.
Yes, that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. It's the playoff. I respect it. I respect
And
it.
do you have any storylines in the NBA that interested you before we get ready to close this out?
I think my most interesting one was the Lakers just being the number 1 seed, like the first time in a while. That was pretty awesome just seeing that. Last time they were the number 1 seed, they won. So that's pretty – we'll see what happens. I mean, that'd be pretty awesome, though, if they won, just, with everything that happened this year. So, yeah I think that was super cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what a drought looks like.
Dude, come on, bro.
We had Robert Sacre as our best. No, let me stop. We had Jeremy Lin as our best player. You don't understand. It hurt. It hurt, man. It feels so good to be back. It feels so good.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, I think just a quick little prediction before we get ready to close this out. I do think the Lakers have the best chance to take it all. They have the 1 seed in the West. They have 2 of the top 5 best players in the league, in my opinion. And it's going to be tough to beat them, regardless of who they face in the West. And if it ends up being the Bucks in the East, like I predicted, I think it's going to be tough to beat that Lakers team. But with all that being said, we're running out of time, and I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Drew for coming on the show. Thanks for coming on and talking Texas State and NBA with us. And to my co-hosts, Amanda and DeShaun, you guys are awesome. So with that being said, make sure that you guys follow at KTSW Sports on Twitter, on Instagram. Make sure you follow our YouTube, KTSW Sports. And that about does it for Bobcat Radio. Now let's get you back to the other side of radio on KTSW 89.9.